Quickly, greetings. Welcome to another video in our series of shorts, videos that are 5 minutes to maybe like a half an hour. We left off talking about Black Europeans. In my humble opinion, this is who is the biggest deterrent to American Indians. These are the folks that when you start to realize who you are, they come out of the woodworks, but there is definitely a noticeable narrative uh, in their rhetoric. And basically, the narrative is, well, like what we have today. They're all rooting for this Trump presidency. That might be the telling factor. When an American Indian wakes up, the idea is to reclaim what was stolen, not to start being cheerleaders for one of the two parties that have been kicking their ass ever since the Indians were misclassified Black. These are the quote unquote Indians who pop up and they seem to know more about law of commerce or commercial codes than law of the land, because if they knew about law of the land, they'd know that there is none. They would know that commerce is what caused Indians to be misclassified in the first place, and they would be steering Indians away from any system that we did not create. And the confusion comes in because Black Europeans have convinced American Indians that they, in fact, designed this government. We're always going to take it back to square one as much as we can. Who is given the credit for anything that has to do with this government? Anyone who knows basic Indian history, with a little bit that, they let out, is they would know that this is all credited to the Iroquois Confederacy. This entire construct is credited to the Iroquois Confederacy. However, the Iroquois Confederacy weren't the only Indians here, and I don't recall anywhere in known history where all Indians agreed that the Iroquois Confederacy should be the spokesperson for all Indians. So therefore, an awakening Indian should be asking, well, wait, which Indians co-signed on this? Okay, show me where I, for instance, as an Algonquin, agreed that you should speak for all Algonquins, when another known fact is that Iroquois did not get along with Algonquins. So the appearance of the Black European depends on some kind of division among American Indians. Okay, this is what we are blindsided. This is where we have a blind spot. We don't really see the profound effect the profound influence of Black Europeans on the destruction of the presence of American Indians on their own land. Again, when we go to Africa or Europe, we have no such power, do we, as American Indians, right? We can't go over there and start dividing them and talking about, well, you and I together, we're the only Africans, and the other Africans, as we just call them, purple, blue, black, whatever. But we are the real Nigerians or whatever. We are those people, and they just the colorable people, the charcoals or whatever. So Indians have not done that because Indians were not known by the Asian world, the African, Asian, European world. We were not known. So I deduced that we must not have been trading with them because we didn't exist, right? We using common sense over here. Uh, so who needed who, and who had to be misclassified in order for those in need to come and take? So this is why American Indians have to decide, are you European or are you American? You can't be both. Not when your country, again, is under siege. And they're still not trying to let it go, even after the doctrine of discovery has been repudiated. I have an unfortunate update in my establishing my Indian not tax status, which I am going to establish. But yes, we have the Department of Finance. They are still talking about how they intend to sell a lien. Okay. Well, you do know that if I don't have a contract with whoever is buying, that I don't owe them anything, right? Okay. And I already told you that I'm an Indian not taxed. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have to stand up on business. And I do mean business, y'all. I can't unsee what I have seen. I can't undo what the ancestors have revealed, and I'm not. It will be suicide to do so. So we're going to have to send out another notice, and we're going to do so. If they're listening, they should know that I'm challenging jurisdiction. There is no time limit on when an American Indian can pick up his true standing. And that standing is outside of the jurisdiction of the United States. And your legal system, which is squarely founded on the doctrine of discovery, again, that has been repudiated. So exactly where are you grabbing authority now? Because we know it's from a janky, unfounded, unlawful, illegal source. It has to be. Again, how do we know this? Well, the three foundational cases dealing with quote unquote Indians in federal anti-Indian law is what the attorney Peter Dorico calls it. Those three foundational cases where Indians lost land or authority, we found out those John Marshall cases, the Supreme Court judge, John Marshall, based his decision on the doctrine of discovery. So if the doctrine of discovery is no longer in effect because it has been what? Repudiated, now what are you going to base your laws on? What are you going to make up that's not in the Constitution? By the way, a Constitution that does not apply to American Indians. Why doesn't the Constitution apply to American Indians? Because we're outside of the jurisdiction of the United States. Does the Constitution apply to China? Does the United States Constitution apply to China? No, right? Because they are outside of the jurisdiction of the United States, and they can still do commerce with the United States without being pulled into the United States jurisdiction. That is what was supposed to happen with Indians. Just because we do commerce with you does not give you the right to dominate us, to tax us, to count us in your census. But that's why you have to call us black, because the Constitution said we were not to be enumerated. But speaking of constitutions, what is the deal with all these constitutions? Now, we have spoken about 3 constitutions: continental, which we know it can't be really continental. Why? Because Indians are not, the land belongs to the Indians, Joe. But anyway, they call it the continental one. That's the first one, 1787. Next, we have the 1789 territorial constitution, where the Bill of Rights live. Now, the Bill of Rights, well, we talked about this, y'all. And I don't even want to get into the implication of the Bill of Rights being in a territorial, with territorial is the British. Territorial is basically square, referring to territories of Britain, right? They're both constructs of Britain. The first Constitution, second, and the third, in conjunction with the Iroquois Confederacy, right? Because the Iroquois Confederacy, the Iroquois Confederacy doesn't mean all Indians, y'all. And in law, we should be able to challenge that by simply saying, who said that the Iroquois Confederacy speaks for all? Where is the contract that said all Indians agree that the Iroquois had the right to do what they did? The Iroquois had the right to do that for themselves, not for all Indians. So right there is an issue, y'all. You know that the Iroquois Confederacy are given the credit for this system, but all Indians are not Iroquois. There's a contractual problem right there, y'all. Because all this bull crap would only apply to the Iroquois Confederacy, if at all. And go grab a map to see the land that it is said to have been the Iroquois Confederacy's land. And you'll know where that don't even include the damn 13 colonies, yo. the Iroquois Confederacy is doing the wheeling and dealing for Algonquin land. So the British, the blackamoors come over, get in bed with the Iroquois Confederacy, help the Iroquois Confederacy with weaponry that helped them to get a leg up on all Indians. So the Iroquois Confederacy basically come up against all Indians because now they have weapons. And Big Brother, the only thing he asks is that whatever land you get, because we gave you the weapons, just make sure that comes to us, and then you will be the Black Caucus, or up in whatever deal. Y'all ain't gonna really be. Y'all gonna go into hiding. That's what you're gonna do, because we know that once we let it on, that is this is all you, Iroquois Confederacy. We know that you need some kind of hiding sanctuary, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This just common sensing it, y'all. Um, when it comes to the five civilized tribes, I've come to the conclusion with what I've looked at is that that was a soft infiltration. That was the kind of infiltration, again, where British or French nobility intermingle so much with the five civilized tribes that now the five civilized tribes are singing the praises of their heritage in Somalia and Mali. So these Indians, they don't they just in love with, they don't, it's all love, right? But the love doesn't extend once again to the greater family of Indians, the larger family of Indians. It's only a love affair between the five civilized tribes and Black Europeans that is also going to have the effect of taking over all Indians. So then the civilized tribes, they get something, but it's not their birthright because they have no control. What the Black Europeans are bringing is a federal commercial system where the focus is more on profit than it is on land ownership. But yet it is the land being controlled by the Black nobility, the Black Europeans, that's getting them the wealth. You know, uh, and yes, the so-called Indians that have mixed with them, they're getting something, but and it's something that I guess they feel is worth the betrayal of all other Indians who have been called Black, right? I don't know, did they get a skin tone upgrade? Is that what you get when you join the Black European? So you don't necessarily will be called Black anymore? Whatever it is, you know what, they can have it. But when the rest of us Sleeping Beauty Indians, the ones who basically been put to sleep in terms of not knowing that we were the Indians that we are, when we wake up, we don't want any of that, right? Because that would just be reinventing a very ugly wheel, a very crooked wheel, right? So you don't want to wake up and join a 501c3. You don't want to wake up and join the five civilized tribes. You don't want to wake up and be known or part of the Iroquois Confederacy. These are the Indians that compromised all other Indians when they got together with the Black European. And then again, then the Caucasian is rolled into the mix for a lovely distraction. And they have all these episodes of racism. So now the quote unquote Black Indians, the ones who were misclassified, they're fighting this white man while Black Europeans and civilized Indians are eating popcorn somewhere. Oh boy. Prove me wrong, civilized Indians. Get up and tell the truth. You don't have to stay in that position, you know. You don't have to stay compromised. But what you do have to do is give up that whole Black European narrative. That means you don't get to sing the praises of Mali or Somalia. You better start singing some praises about American Indian stories, yo. And I'm talking about without mention of these damn Black European Moors. They know their story. You the only one who don't, by and large. And then when you do get a story, you talking more about him than you. So it's only fair that you err on the side of your American Indian, because that's what's being buried for the sake of the Black European. Yeah. Uh, but today, again, what we're going to try to do quickly, uh, I guess I'll welcome myself back to my channel since I was away. I was away, y'all, for a while because I was suspended, y'all. I done talk bad about that which shall not be mentioned in the health community. So I cannot talk about what's going on in the health community. So there's my first or well, it's not mine, but there's the old American first the United States First Amendment out the window. Because what is being regulated in commerce? Uh yeah. Well, as an Indian, those rights, I have my own rights they call birthrights. So that's all part of my birthright. So everything that people got in the Bill of Rights was already mine at birth as an American Indian, and then some. Yeah. So, but I'm just saying, because we are dominated in commerce, that means even an Indian can't speak freely on a commercially regulated platform, right? Because it's regulated. And free speech don't mean nothing when you regulate it, right? None of the Bill of Rights mean anything when commerce steps in the house. Bye bye, right? Have a good night. See you, hopefully, one day, hopefully, maybe, possibly. Bye bye, Bill of Rights and civil rights. You just go sit down, yo. You just go sit your ass down. Civil rights were for black slaves, y'all. Something that doesn't even really exist. Those are indentures. And they were black European indentures, apparently. When we listen to Dane talk about Harriet Tubman leading other black Europeans to quote unquote freedom. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's just this system is so complicated. Now you got to think the Iroquois didn't even know how to write. How they build a system like that? What did they do? Do it in sign language? Of course, the black Europeans interpreted that sign language to mean, give me your shit, all of it. You African, you imposter. You belong in Africa. If I belong in Africa, where do you belong, my black European uh uh, step brother? Hmm. Hmm. You want me in Africa, but you won't go back. You don't want to go back to Europe, huh? How cool was it that they they got sent away to the Americas? How fortunate for the black Europeans that they staged a coup where they were taken like into captivity to America. How fortunate of that you end up in America. Why wouldn't they take your ass to Africa where you first became a thing? Why did you come into captivity or whatever in America? Yeah, because it's apparently, y'all, I was of the mind that it was the riffraff that they sent here. But apparently there was some nobility mixed in with these black Europeans. I think they came acting like they were the riffraff. I'm starting to think that. So that means whoever I don't know. It's looking to me that how what fortune it was that you were brought here to the Americas, the same place that you wanted to colonize. You end up here as like an indenture. I guess we're supposed to, not see that connection that some of you were actual nobility that acting like y'all was somebody took over you, but you end up here. Why would they bring you here though? You know, but that's just one narrative in so many scenarios of how the black Moors got their tail over here again. Oh, we was brought here. We didn't want to come. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The whole thing seems like it was staged when I try to make sense of it. But y'all, again, the rabbit hole of this black European drama, because it's all about black Europeans, y'all. Indians barely even, we just finding out who the hell we are. So from that, before that, it had to be all about black Europeans because most American Indians don't even know that they're Indians. So then what were we? We were African or black European, right? So it's all about them when they come here. That's why Indians have to be adamant and don't allow even the factions like the Nation of Islam, they can't be your biggest influence. Because what? Because they are compromised. No matter what they actually are in their blood, whether they be half Indian, half Black European, or 60% Indian and 40% European, their minds are compromised. They actually believe that America believed in the monotheistic Abrahamic religions. We didn't. Now, that's not necessarily to criticize a religion that people have taken. It's just restating a known fact that America was always seen as a new world that was not Christianized. What, am I saying something that no one ever heard before? It's a fact. So us gravitating towards something that's foreign is gravitating towards something that is foreign. That is not something Heru did. Heru is just looking at history, okay, as it is told. But we do have revisionists out there that are trying to rewrite history as we speak so that we are lost once again. You can't keep changing history every time an Indian figures out what you are doing. You don't get to do that, y'all. We got, again, black Europeans masquerading as Indians, talking about they're whispering to Indians saying, well, you don't have to go back that far in time. Let's just start with the 1700s. So just like they do in the 1600s, where they want to start off where we were slaves, quote unquote, allegedly, and our history only begins with slavery. Now some Moors have gotten a little, I guess they think this is clever. Now they're saying, no, well, let's go even more recent. Let's start with the 1700s. So starting with the 1700s is also cutting off American Indians' history because we don't start in the 1700s. The Black Europeans do. The Black European presence is well established in the 1700s, y'all. So if you want to start with the 1700s, basically you're saying, I only want to talk about myself as a Black European. I don't want to talk about when Columbus came here and found Indians. That didn't happen. That's how far these Moors are going now. They are remodeling history where, okay, forget about the 1600s. Let's start over. How about we start with the 1700s? So you have to come more recent. You can't go far back, right, Morris? Because then the lies are really like, whoa. So let's start in the 1700s. Once again, they want you to be cut off from your most ancient ancestors. But we are gathered here today because, again, I'm sorry, I've been going all over the place. This is my first time back, y'all, in Enlighten. a few months. I thought I wasn't going to be able to come back till March, but then when I did my shorts, I noticed that they posted. And I was like, oh, I thought I was still in prison, but they didn't tell me I was released. They said, let that Negro think he let him still think he in prison. Maybe he won't come back, you know. But yeah, uh I began to post a little more on Instagram because, you know, who knows, right? Who knows? I think the regulating of YouTube basically, like you're on a trajectory for them to, just take you off completely. Like, oh, one strike this, second strike that, and then we finally, get to just take you off. I guess it's a permanent thing. I don't know. You have to start all over again, and if you didn't save your videos, they're gone or whatever. And so that's called regulating commerce, y'all. Isn't it wonderful? You see how that takes away your what they call God-given rights? You see how commerce just finds a way. Oh, you're not supposed to talk like that. I'm going to take you off this platform. You can't come back no more. I've just shut down free speech, all of that. hmm That's why Indians need to get cracking, because Indians don't have to go by these commercial codes. I don't know. Do Indians think this is a joke? Do they think it's cool to just stay dominated by a foreign power? Why? Because you don't want to do any kind of farming. Well, you don't have to, if you don't, but you should control the land at least, because that is what no Indian has that right now. None. 501c3s are just little extensions of the federal, and federally recognized are that tells you right there what they are: federal little products. So they don't have any land ownership. They don't have any final say. This is what Indians have lost. This is what must be returned. But if Indians want to stay in an oppressive system, it will never be returned. Let's see. I can't yet. My timer seems to have disappeared. I used to know how long my videos were, but now I'll be talking. There is no timer, and I don't have any idea of how long a video could be. But lately, I've been trying to do shorter videos. So today, after all our talk about the United States Constitution, we have never figured out, well, what's the deal with state constitutions? So once again, Indians, the plot thickens and it becomes even more convoluted than we could have ever imagined. So let's try to see if we can begin to understand what is going on with state constitutions. Do they have any validity, since all we ever talk about is the United States Federal Bill of Rights? It just occurred to me, civil rights again were created for slaves. So if the whole population now in the United States are talking about civil rights, that means they all agree that the level of rights they get are slave class level, right? But what's interesting is, this is what we're going to try to understand today, and I don't know if we will, because again, it's so this system is so confusing, y'all, and you got to understand, chaos is necessary. when you are taking something unlawfully from a people of a land. There must be, the legal system has to be chaotic, you know, and I don't understand how you can have a land with laws that the people really don't know, or they can't even interpret, because you have to have an attorney interpret them for you. That's a problem, y'all. Every landmass of people should know their laws almost like as if by heart, because they shouldn't be so complicated where you wonder, well, what does that mean? Oh my God, what does that mean? That what it means is you're being taken advantage of as we speak. It means right now you're whatever rights you think you have, someone is working on taking them away. Okay. When you don't understand your laws, of course, that's just do the math, y'all. If you can't interpret laws because they're written in what they call legalese, which is a whole separate language that is not really taught unless you go to become an attorney. Or you could, be what a renegade person interested in law. But the whole population needs to know, not just a few that get to be called crazy when they understand what the law is actually saying, like Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. So the question was, what is the point of a state? What is the point of a state constitution? Because I'm sure many people in these states don't even know their constant. We so busy talking about the Bill of Rights. Well, what about the Bill of Rights in your state constitution? You see, that's what's being erased, y'all. The states started out before the federal existed. Technically, the states are the authority over the federal because they existed first. See the power of being a firstborn. It still applies in law, really, if you understand. So that's why, firstborns are demonized. There's always going to be something coming after to take away, you know, to take that place. So we asked the question, what is the point of a state constitution? And this is the answer we got. And we're going to just go with what AI shows. It makes for a shorter video, and we can all do our own research if we want to look deeper. But it does answer the question. So let's read. The point of state constitutions is to establish the framework for each individual state government, defining its structure, powers, and limitations, including outlining the rights of citizens within that state, often providing more detailed protections than the federal. More detailed protections than the federal. And addressing issues specific to the unique needs and circumstances of each state population, essentially acting as a mini constitution. Well, that's a very interesting choice of words. A state's constitution should be its major constitution. That's how it was supposed to be. But here we go, y'all. There's the psyop right there, the mental programming. So basically, to me, that means you're minimizing the power of the state, which was supposed to be greater than the federal. Now, this is just me as an Indian all up in foreigners' government business, because I'm trying to understand how they took control of me, you see. So that's why I got to be all up in a Kool-Aid trying to figure this the flavor. And all I know is it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. That's all I really know. But essentially, a state constitution is a mini constitution when it has more detailed protection, but it's mini. So I don't get like y'all don't get deep with me. We go general with the federal. because you just said that each state's constitution is mini. So that means the federal is maxi, right? It wasn't supposed to be that way, y'all. But again, when federal regulates commerce, these sort of things just sort of happen, right? So each state constitution is a mini me of the federal constitution. But what came first, the state or the federal? Whatever comes first has domination over that which came second. But you see, in a new world order, that's not necessarily the case, y'all. So essentially acting as a mini constitution for each state within the federal system. What we're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, is the first little hint that there was a government that existed before the federal government in each separate state. And in each separate state, they had state citizens, not federal citizens. Now they will act like, oh, they're both equally important, blah, blah, blah. No, they're not. The federal is gobbling up state citizens and state constitutions, and they're becoming mini me's of the federal government. Okay. And again, how many citizens really even know this? When I think about it, here I am always quoting the Bill of Rights. But then I heard somebody say recently, the Bill of Rights only applies to federal employees, and I almost passed out. Faint. Well, I can't keep up with this level of chaos, yo. I'm like, well, wait a minute now. Y'all saying that the Bill of Rights don't apply to state citizens? Is that what you're saying? Well, it would make sense because, again, what came first, the states or the federal? Y'all, the state came first, y'all. Just to jump to the answer. So there's no way that the federal should pull rank over something that created it. The state gave life to federal. Federal became the tool of quote unquote regulation that erases all bills, a Bill of Rights. Because nobody talks about each state's constitution anymore. As much as I've looked at, and y'all know how much we looked at this legal system, and we talked about state citizens and state nationals, but we forgot. I did not, I can't say I forgot. I didn't know. But let's just be real. This system is so convoluted, y'all. But of course, if you have state citizens, they must have some kind of state constitution, right? So what are we saying? Civil rights were created. Now everybody talks about their civil rights have been violated. No one talks about my state rights. My state constitutional rights have been violated. It's always my federal, we all we really know is the United States Bill of Rights. But again, I heard, and it almost made my ear fall off, God forbid, that only applies. Let's breathe, y'all. Federal only applies to federal employees, right? So the Bill of Rights that we always talk about with a First Amendment and a Second Amendment, that don't even supposed to apply to state citizens. because state citizens have their own Bill of Rights. That, but again, if you're identifying as a United States citizen, that means you have put yourself under the United States Bill of Rights and not your state Bill of Rights so much. So that is how the Fed system and Congress becomes like king of all states, right? Because we're all oriented toward the federal system. We overlook, excuse me, when I say we, I shouldn't include myself as an American Indian, because again, none of this is supposed to involve me. I was only supposed to be supplying my goods and services to the pilgrims and getting a profit. But instead, I got misclassified black. The federal government took over my land, took over my commerce, right? And I don't get nothing. I don't get no kind of ownership, land ownership compensation. What I get is movies telling me that I am African. I'm African, and I came here as a slave. So once again, American Indians being confused with elements of Europe or Africa. Both of them have the effect of taking us out of our authoritative position in the Americas. Being a Black European does not give us more authority. It just gives us colonizer cred. And now we're acting as a colonizer against our own people because we so in love with the fabulousness of Black nobility. But again, I like to common sense it. Apparently, Black nobility didn't have anything. That's why they coming to take your stuff, American Indian. You're busy being flattered by their grandeur, but obviously they don't have anything worth half of what you have. That's why they're here. That's why when they come here, a large segment of American Indians have to be called Black for them to be at home in my homeland. And Indians going to act like they don't know what time it is. Well, let Heru help. I don't claim to be, I don't do that thing that I see where, oh, I have to talk about how great and wonderful I am. And I was the first to do this on YouTube. And I've been doing this since blah, 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 da, 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 da. It really, that's wonderful. But everybody has something to offer here. And, it's just interesting to see how Indians, I don't know, there's, let's just say, you're not a popular Indian if you're not speaking from the point of view of, say, a federally recognized tribe or a civilized Indian. You won't be popular. It's a little club of Indians who, get on and rant and rave, and praise Trump and talking about how the that Africans have and blah blah blah. But nobody's talking about taking their country back for real. They'll talk about it, but then they don't really get into the legality. And it really isn't rocket science. We just gotta figure out, well, how did we lose this land? How did we lose our land? I want to jump in and say the treaties were bogus, and kudos to Dr. Tracy who really showed in one of her videos, she really showed that the treaties were bogus. They weren't signed properly. It's like whoever signed them, they didn't want to be known that it was who signed it, and it wasn't like, well, apparently they weren't signed. So I asked myself after Dr. Tracy, did some excellent deep diving on that. Why were the treaties not honored? Ladies and gentlemen, please pull your pen out and make a note somewhere. Nothing we did contractually really was seen as valid. The colonizers, the Black Europeans, they knew that they did not have to honor anything that they promised us, anything that even if we did sign a contract. What made the contract void is that the doctrine of discovery basically made us a dead people. Now, some people are going to say dead in law. I can't say dead in law. Why can't I say dead in law? Because whose law are we talking about? If I'm dead in a foreigner's law, that doesn't mean I'm dead in law, because the foreigner's law is not my law. So I don't know if I can say Indians were made dead in law, were made dead according to their law. They are the ones that decided that because we weren't practicing a religion that we never knew, so therefore we couldn't practice it, they decided that we don't have any rights even to live. So when you commit a crime against an American Indian, it's not a crime at all because they're sinners. But anyway, we digressed a little bit. What happened to the state constitutions? Well, once people became federal citizens, the state constitutions took like several seats, because you just took yourself out of your state superior standing. If you're a foreigner, the best thing you had was a state. But once you go under federal, now you're subject to the federal government's debts, and baby, they're going to hike them up so high that you're going to get vertigo just hearing about it. People on this landmass have been so massively railroaded that it's kind of scary. It's who thinks of these such utter deceptive practices, making treaties for the fun of it because you don't have to honor them, but just so you could show the world, look, we had a treaty with these clowns and they somehow they didn't go by them, so we figured they don't need treaties no more. But when one party ends a treaty, isn't that cause for like some kind of conflict? I'm talking about like war level. If we had a treaty and one party decide that we don't have to make treaties with you no more, you just diminish me as a nation or of people or men and women. You decide whether the treaty should be enforced. Why? Because of the doctrine of discovery, y'all. They just have to make it look good for a few years, and then they just abandon that crap. because the doctrine of discovery never said that you have to honor heathen. I think the idea was that they could just kill us. And it was merciful that they didn't kill us and made us slaves instead. That was a good thing because somehow their deity, that deity dictates to them that if you go somewhere and they don't know me, although I have not been revealed to them, if they don't know me through some kind of form of telekinetic psychic ability, how else would American Indians have known of this deity if we didn't know this deity? We would have had to have psychic ability, right? And they didn't test us to see if we knew this deity. They already knew we didn't know this deity. That they didn't even ask, y'all. They came knowing that we wasn't Christian, y'all. That's why it's kind of frightening to me that we can't let a foreign deity system go. I think it'll make it very hard for us to maneuver in uh reclaiming our birthright, because if you can't let go of the thing that caused you to lose your birthright, you kind of run the risk of slipping back, and your blood is on your own hands. It was bloody, y'all, if you didn't believe the way the church at one time, they did repudiate that stuff. But if you didn't believe the way the church wanted you to believe at one time, you were out of here, yo. Whether you were taken in slavery, whether you were just made unalived on the spot, your life didn't matter, okay? Your black life didn't matter because it was black. But anyway, yeah, what we're trying to see here is how even the states took a back seat. Not only did Indians get completely X out of existence, but even the states changed the nature of the authority that they had over the foreigner, or everything gave way to a federal commercial regulation system. And regulation was never defined. Any man or woman in his right mind would have to say, somebody has to put a rein on regulation because it was never defined. So that means someone could just, again, override state constitutions, bills of rights of those states, because regulation was never limited. There's no limitation on regulation as far as I know, because it's not defined. When we get to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, it says Congress has the power to regulate commerce between Indian tribes and states. But what does regulate mean? Um, so we're looking at something that we could maybe call an extinct species. It's called state constitution. So key points about state constitution: structure of government. They define the three branches of state government: executive, legislative, and judicial, and how they interact with each other. The Bill of Rights. So here's what is really a little bit frightening, because we never talk about each state's Bill of Rights, because none of them are, no two are quite exactly the same as far as I know. Well, I know for sure that they're not like the federal Bill of Rights. The federal Bill of Rights begins with the right to free speech. And then the Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights, excuse me, is the right to bear arms. But when you think about it, if these are federal rights, then that means it's really employees of the federal that have the right to bear arms, right? Not every citizen. Well, that's when you had state citizens. But now again, state citizens are just something you say, but they really don't exist once a federal United States citizen comes on the scene. So what are we making a distinction between? We're making a distinction between a U.S. citizen and a state citizen. A state citizen is under state constitutions. Each state has its own constitution. But once you become a U.S. or a federal citizen, basically it's the federal Bill of Rights that you're talking about. And you're saying that those are your rights. But that means you have two Bill of Rights, because you live in a state, well, or do you reside in a state? Because that's another thing. Once you become federal, they don't even see you as a national of your state. You're a resident. So the federal citizenship is kind of doing a TKO on the state citizenship. That is why people like Anna von Reitz, that's the whole point of her existence right now. She's the one who's telling Europeans and whoever else has come to our land, she's telling them that you were supposed to be a citizen of the state you were born in, not a federal citizen, not a United States citizen. And as such, you are not bound to the federal debt, what they call the national debt. See, that's the other thing. State citizens, they could question the debt of the state. But a federal United States citizen cannot question the federal debt, y'all. So the states are paying the federal's debts as well as theirs, apparently. Now, again, Indians don't have nothing to do with this. I'm just an Indian trying to figure out how I got pulled into this. So now it made me look at your system like, what is going on here? So that's okay. The other part to this puzzle is that the federal, in order for them to get all this power, well, what they did with I know with the southern states is they forced them. The only way that they can be allowed back into the quote unquote union was to adopt the 14th Amendment. So southern states, now we would have to look to see, did northern states have to adopt the 14th Amendment? I'm guessing that they all did. Yeah, that would make sense, because the feds want to control everything. So now okay, let's look at this, say it again. Each state of the Confederate States of the South, they were forced to add the 14th Amendment to each of their constitutions. Say now, South Carolina had to have it, Georgia had to have it, Alabama had to have it. Was Florida part of this? Any of the Confederate states, each of those states had to have a 14th Amendment in it. That 14th Amendment means that the federal has now just created something in the state that belongs to the federal and have nothing really to do with the state. Initially, that was the African slave. So the federal was saying, we want to manage the African slave just like the federal is managing federally recognized tribes. So federal tribes are like African slaves. The African slave was given civil rights through the 14th Amendment. Now everyone has those civil rights. Those civil rights, how do they compare to your state's Bill of Rights? Now, normally we always talk about the United States Bill of Rights. And we said that civil rights are only part, they're not all, of the federal Bill of Rights. So now we have to ask, is that the same thing with each state's Bill of Rights? Because as we just read, most state constitutions, so that means some of them don't have a Bill of Rights. Okay, let's try to figure this out. What states, I was going to say something, but that doesn't, no, maybe that's not correct. Because I'm starting to wonder, was a Bill of Rights? No, that was what the free persons fought for. Now remember, Indians are not free persons because we were sovereign. The Constitution does not talk about, when the Constitution talks about free persons, that will be Black Europeans and other Europeans. Because Indians are called Indians in the Constitution. So they're not free persons. Free persons, what are they? Free persons are the ones who broke away from the kings, the Black nobility of Europe. So an Indian is not a free person. An Indian is an American. Okay. So most state constitutions include a Bill of Rights. What we need to find out maybe is what states don't have a Bill of Rights. Because I don't know. It seems that you need one, especially when rights are being steamrolled over left and right in a federally regulated system. So the Bill of Rights outlines fundamental civil liberties for citizens. Civil liberties. You know we have a problem with that wording, right? I think Indians should take note of how often the word liberty is used in place of freedom. And I'm not even sure where civil is coming from. Are they trying to equate it with the Civil War? And then they got civil rights. Is that what, it's very convoluted. Again, this is a very complicated system. I mean, it kind of would make sense that they say, well, they had a civil war, so they fought for civil rights. But civil rights were only for emancipated slaves, emancipated Black Europeans, apparently, and Africans. Indians weren't slaves. They were again, prisoners of war does seem like the better description. I mean, that means we were just taken over. We weren't brought here as slaves. We were sovereigns who were either brain programmed to think we were Black Europeans and that their story is our story, or we were mass programmed to think that we're African. There's only two things that an American Indian can be: an African or a Black European. And both of those have the effect of completely canceling out American Indian. So that's why we can't be those, even if we have them in our family. We simply have to tell them, look, when you're in America, you have to do as I do. If you want to go African with it, go back to Africa, baby. Go back to Africa. We will not have genocide of any kind anymore. If you're a Black European and all you can talk about is King Louis, okay, then why don't you go back to where King Louis be? Because he ain't all of that over here. That would be called colonization, domination. So when you come here, we're going to talk about Powhatan. We're going to talk about Indian heroes, y'all. That's what needs to happen. No more talking about how great Black Europeans are in America. I mean, if they think they're great or they want to be great, they need to go home. And then you could be a patriot. Because being a Black European so-called patriot is oxymoronic. You can't be a patriot to a country that's not your country. That's why is that not really possible? Because your first love should be your homeland. That's who you're supposed to be a patriot of. You can't come to a foreign country and call yourself a patriot. Sorry. You know, you're supposed to be what's the word? Patronizing? Is that it? Your birthright, not somebody else's, unless you are respecting them. And what RESPCT? Find out what it mean to me. Okay. Am I being compensated while you prosper on my land? What's happening to me? When you come to a foreign land, you can't just take. You have to support the people that you have come to be part of. And again, it is you wanting to be part of them, not the other way around. Because you can stay in your country if that's what the deal is. If you want to keep your self-preservation and my culture, blah blah blah. Well, you got to do that at home. You can't come here and talk about you preserving your culture. You got to go back with your peeps and do that. So is that a bad thing? No, it's not. Why? Because American Indians have already been mass indoctrinated to not even know who they are. So to have someone else come here and all they want to talk about is their culture, why don't you go back to your culture? I'm trying to reclaim mine. And you're not really here to support mine. So why are you here? Oh, to make a living. Okay, so you're here to take advantage of resources and not pay for those resources, compensate for those resources. That's how business goes, y'all. This was all supposed to be commerce, right? So am I saying something wrong? It was all supposed to be commerce. In fact, we're being dominated by commerce right now. And we still ain't getting compensated. What does the colonizer mean when he's talking about regulation and commerce? Because it seems like none of that is happening for American Indians. In fact, it's only happening for the foreign nobility, as far as I can see. Because when you have a Caucasian woman like Anna fighting to be a state citizen again, because she done been pirated into a federal system, well, you know that she ain't getting getting her just due in what this system promised her. So that means everybody is getting taken advantage of, except perhaps Congress, because Congress is pulling rank over everything. That rank that no one gave them, by the way. See, the federal, again, was created by the states. That's the order it came in. It was states, and then it was a federal. So technically, again, that which is created cannot have more power than the creator, unless the creator all of a sudden has amnesia and is being misled and lied to and technology away. Local government. They established the framework for local governments within the state, including counties and cities, I guess towns and stuff too. So that's the state establishing that, the counties and the cities, the towns, right? That's the local government. Again, Indians are not part of this. Should be getting compensation for all this just plopped on our land, yo. Because there's a displacement that happens. See, that's the thing. These entities appear and Indians have to disappear. That's how you know that even Black Europeans don't have your best interests. They too busy trying to capitalize off of what belongs to America. Okay, so let's see if we can move on. We gotta move on because I can't be all day. I gotta log in for work. The next question: how does the federal constitution override state constitutions? And to my surprise, there was an answer. So there's actually a clause. The federal constitution overrides state constitutions through the Supremacy Clause. And you know, again, that almost made my ears melt. We got a actual supremacy clause. So all we got to do is put white in front of that. But anyway, as we know, white is not a color, it's a status of the Black nobility. Again, that's how chaos works, y'all. White supremacy is a status of Black nobility. Go figure, y'all. Go figure. I can't. I can't, y'all. I can't. I can't. The federal constitution overrides state constitutions through the Supremacy Clause. I've never heard of that, y'all. Who out there heard of that? Which is found in Article 6, Clause 2 of the Constitution. Remember, y'all, Indians are just trying to do business with these folks. And we got X'd out of that when they made us Black, and that was the end of that, right? We didn't get no compensation, no nothing. You don't got no control of your land, right? Mm-hmm. So that's all we was there for. We were just trying to provide y'all some goods and services. But y'all said, why do I need you when I can just take them and not pay for them? Sit your ass out over there and be a civilized tribe, yo. And he said, okay. Yeah. Mm. This clause establishes that the federal law and the Constitution take precedence over state law and Constitution. Y'all, that is utter madness. Again, what is the like a pillar of even law? That which created the created has a authority over that which was created. The state gave life to the federal. How does the federal, in turn, take the life away from the states? It's not supposed to happen, y'all, because the state has the authority by being the first. And that's why they had to misclassify Indians, because we would have the authority as the first people. We were here before the federal. or the state. So they are both, I hate to use the word, but they are inferior to American Indians. We have the upper hand. This is our land. That's how it's supposed to be. That's why we were misclassified. Again, Native Americans were not misclassified. They were always Native American. They were not they were not changed to black, or they weren't formally black or whatever. So that's how we know that they have nothing. They're no threat because they're not the first people. Only the first people of the land have to be misclassified so that the colonizing entity don't have to deal with their ownership of their land. They could just say, "Oh, but you were heathen, so you don't count. We can call you black. Bye bye." And then the Indian now is just made the lowest in the caste system. But they're actually saying that although the state created the federal, they think that according to AI, which I think AI got it wrong, or whoever wrote this got it wrong, it could the federal could never have more power than the state unless there is a black nobility who built this thing, knows how to maneuver to gain authority or jurisdiction that it shouldn't have. How does the Supremacy Clause work? The Supremacy Clause makes federal law the supreme law of the land. It ain't law of the land, it's commerce. So it's far from supreme. Didn't the Constitution said that the federal was only to regulate commerce between the states and the Indian tribes? So how do they become you're only supposed to regulate commerce, basically, and your employees. Well, I don't know. The way the state nationals say is that Congress wasn't even supposed to be sitting there 365 days of the year. They were supposed to convene at least once a year, y'all. So what does that mean? That means you're paying people to keep seats warm, but they weren't intended to sit there every day. But you know, uh, stealing people's rights is a daily thing. You can't sleep on that. Overtaking a country with commerce requires you to be on them seats every day, right? They said, "Oh no, see, they were supposed to be like us, y'all. They want that one's supposed to be their main job, being like sitting in them Congress seats. They were supposed to be out there working too, but just like the priesthood, they sat their fat ass down and never got up, y'all. That's how we can end up paying them daily when we. That's why the debt is off the chart. We didn't intend to pay them all this money, y'all, for sitting there, for working like they work. They're supposed to be out there doing like us, being one of us. They became a whole elite entity. We just want to sit here and make laws and direct commerce and dominate commerce. We don't want to go work. We want to sit our ass right here and get paid for all these services that we are creating that have the effect of taking away your state constitution and your state bill of rights and put ours up front. And then what? It take precedence over state and law constitution to become the supreme law of the land. How is commerce going to be the supreme law of the land? Only Indians can make supreme law of the land, y'all. And unfortunately, that will not be a job for Iroquois Confederacy any longer. Thank you, Iroquois Confederacy, for your disservice. No longer needed. We see what you did, right? You will never do that again. You will never do that again. It requires state courts to follow federal law. That don't even sound right. It requires state courts to follow federal law, y'all. I'm getting civilized tribe vibes. This sounds like the stuff they can do with civilized tribes, but they doing it with the states. If Indians don't get out, I don't know what to tell y'all. State courts have to follow federal law? Don't sound right, y'all. Then what's the point of having state courts? I mean, it sounds like they don't have no power, y'all, like the five civilized tribes and stuff. You just there. Why? Why are you there? For play? It prohibits states from interfering with the federal government's constitutional powers. Again, where did the federal government get their power? From the states, y'all. And this is just an American Indian uh, seeing where this foreign entity don't even get their own stuff right, let alone trying to be a plenary authority over me as an American Indian. Well, who gave you that? Oh, the black nobility. Uh oh, you thought that was me because he looked like me. And I came to you and say, how about you just fuck me over? And you said, okay, because the black nobility looked like me. You thought that I wanted to be at the bottom of the caste system. Oh boy, y'all gotta separate from the black nobility, y'all, from the black Europeans. Uh, Examples of the supremacy clause in action. Oh Lord, Congress can establish uniform rules for federal elections, which override state regulations. Ooh, y'all, I'm about to throw up. I'm about to be sick to my stomach, y'all. This is sickening. This don't even sound right. Anna, Anna, did you read this? What you got to say? I know you got something to say. Glenn Fern. Don't get him started. Don't get him started. That's Glenn Fern, my imitation of Glenn Fern. Don't get me going. You're gonna get me going. If he ever hears me, Glenn, I've been to your lecture. I poke fun at you with love because again, if it wasn't for these Caucasians, this Indian would be being misled by black Europeans, yo. Yeah. Black Europeans, all they know is commercial code. They cannot talk about law of the land. And I think Indians need to understand why that is. Because they're not you, although they would like to use you. They still can't quite claim your status, your standing. Because why can't black nobility, black Europeans, we could kind of use that interchangeably because they're sprinkled in with the black Europeans. The black nobility are sprinkled in with the black Europeans. But why can't they fully assimilate with Indians and just be Indians? Why won't they ever do that? Well, it's because they don't intend to give up any of who they are. And that should be a problem because Indians give up everything when black Europeans show up. We become black. We start talking about your history in Mali and Somalia. Black Europeans have an agenda, and Indians need to understand that. They don't just come to meld in to your culture. They are going to make sure that you meld into their culture. In other words, when they come here, they should not, again, if you only want to big up your side of the family, you could stay in your country and do that where it will help your people. It does not help Indians to only know your story or to be so into your story that we don't see how you're stealing our birthright because you look like us. How the Moors claim American Indians, they just simply say, well, look at us. We're the same people. Nowhere on earth does that kind of rationale hold water. Oh, because you look like me, we're the same people. Only Moors do that. Only Moors do that. And there's a reason for that. Because besides what we look like, we couldn't be more different. Moors are seeking some kind of world renowned position. Indians just trying to keep the land under their feet in light of this Moor coming to be the poster boy for all quote unquote Black people. The Moor is all about the individuality when he's out in the world. But when he comes to America, all of a sudden, I'm you and you me. Look at us, we look alike. Well, that didn't stop you from enslaving people that look like you, right? As well as people who didn't look like you. But that never stopped you. It didn't matter. It didn't matter if they look like you. But when it come to America, all of a sudden, it's all about what they look like. And that's what they want to focus on. Peep game, Indian, peep game. A federal law banning abortion would preempt state constitutional protections. Y'all, again, that's making me like ill. Just reading that is it don't sound right, y'all. Again, states precede federal. So how does the federal come along and grab all of this jurisdiction, all this power? And then the whole abortion thing. Okay, because we talked about that too. This whole back and forth with abortion. One year you have it, the other year you don't. If it's all federal, then why is it always changing? In other words, if federal has the effect of you just going to override everything, then why are you playing games from year to year? Because sometimes it's a Democratic uh, Congress, and then sometimes it's a Republican Congress. More chaos, y'all. More chaos. More chaos. This system is a convoluted level 100% convoluted. Historical note. The Supremacy Clause was controversial during the ratification period. However, it is now considered unambiguous. Yeah. It's a grab. It has very questionable beginnings. And then when it's in full effect, it's act like, I ain't going nowhere. I'm the boss. No, states had more power than you. I don't know how they're doing this, y'all. Now, I know that the doctrine of discovery made life a living hell for American Indians, but now we're talking about people in states that are not American Indians. Did the doctrine of discovery have something over on them too, where their states have less power than the federal when the state created the federal? That's what I learned from Glenn Fern, by the way. You don't learn anything like this from Black Europeans, not one iota. This is what I learned from Glenn Fern, y'all. Glenn Fern, kudos to Glenn Fern. You might not be an Indian, but man, if an Indian had your brain, it'd be phew. Uh, what I learned from Glenn Fern, that the term sovereign citizen is in one of the damn I forgot what document it is, y'all, but it's like in one of these statutes. The term sovereign citizen is actually valid. In one of the statutes, Glenn showed that each state is each citizen is a sovereign citizen of the state. So in other words, they take words, and when they changing up stuff, that word, although it's legal and lawful, nowadays, if you say sovereign citizen, they're about to fix it to, like, I don't know, like put you in jail and stuff. But it's actually a term that's in federal law. I would have to, look that up. I was shocked because the way the system currently looks at the term sovereign citizen is like, you can't be, no. But that's what the citizens of each state were. They were sovereign. That's what the law was saying, y'all. The term sovereign citizen is somewhere up in one of these statutes and codes, y'all. But now that the feds have taken, what do they call it? Preemptive authority over states. You can't, because now you're a federal citizen. So anything you had as a state, that's overridden by federal. That's what makes this system more like a dictatorship, because the state, it's like, why even have a state, and all these states have constitutions if they're all being overridden by the District of Columbia? So that means we have one piece of land that's not even a state, that's owned by Britain, that's pulling rank over all states. Y'all, it sounded to me like the nobility never left. I don't know what you think about this. It sounds to me that the Black nobility never left. They just put on a Caucasian face. Why do I keep saying that? Y'all Indians gonna be, yeah, they white. They wasn't black. Get Lee Cummings' Negro Question series and then come back and talk to me, okay? Go read Lee Cummings' Negro Question series and read about, what did he say, the five Black kings that founded the states. Some elements of the state start talking about a federal system, and that's how the federal system. So that what it's looking like to me, that within the Black nobility that founded these states, there were those who were pushing for a federal, because they knew that, yeah, we're going to create these states, make them think that they got rights and individuality and all that foolishness. And then when the federal comes, you're going to take all these knuckleheads right back into subjugation. And they're going to pay once we get them to get the 14th Amendment, they're going to be paying all our debt. So we're going to ram that debt sky high so that we can talk about, oh, you can't own nothing because you owe us this and this amount. So everything you have belongs to me. But all you do is run up a debt that no one asked you to run up, because you went beyond your 19 enumerated functions. But now you have a Supremacy Clause? That word sounds funny in my ear too. Yeah, it don't ring right. That have the federal having a supremacy clause established that the federal law and constitution take precedence over state law and constitutions, then why have state law? You know what? And one day they're going to ask me that question. You're right. Why do we have state laws and state constitutions? Let's get rid of those. Bill, can we get rid of those? And the states gonna be like, well, wait. Nah, by that time, the states are gonna be they so infiltrated. Like, yeah, we agree that we don't want to have state laws no more. We get paid more from the federal. Um, let's get rid of state constitutions. I guess it already happened, y'all. I might be behind the eight ball. Maybe I'm just behind, but uh, I guess well, when the federal has supremacy clause, don't that mean that the state ain't like is like toilet paper after being used? Huh? Oh boy. Oh boy. But again, we have people like Glenn, and I'm going to tell you, he's the one that as of late has made me realize that there is no way that the thing that was created, which is the federal system, federal government by the states, there's really no way that they're supposed to even have this power. They don't, because that which created it is the authority. That's the pillar that Glenn has enlightened me with. And just me as an Indian looking at a chaotic system, just trying to get some clarity, because I got to figure out how this chaotic system call itself being plenary authority over Indians not taxed or represented or counted in census. I don't, how do you say you have rank over me when the Constitution is clearly giving me the diving board to have my own system like I had before you came and should have always had. So, what is the lesson of today? Let's just say before we go any further, I think the lesson is, wasn't this system supposed to? Wasn't the state supposed to have more? Uh, what do you call it? More power than the feds. What happened to that? It got overridden by commerce. Oh, you see how the system does its own, y'all? Let alone an Indian wanting to be part of this mess. You see how it does to its own subjects? Because that's what basically they looking at them like, subjects. So, who established the Supremacy Clause? Was the next question. The Supremacy Clause was written as part of the U.S. Constitution, which was created by the founding fathers. The clause is found in Article 6 of the Constitution. Explanation. The Supremacy Clause establishes that federal laws, treaties, and regulations are the supreme law of the land. Again, commerce cannot be the supreme law of the land. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's not possible, especially when the commerce is not conducted by the people of that land. When you have something on your land that's using up all your resources, it's not really commerce. It's called conquest, y'all. Not seeing a dime, right? In fact, you're paying this entity more than it's paying you to be on your land. Indian not tax. How does that go misinterpreted? How does the term Indian not tax not understood? Okay, y'all, they would find a way to make Indian not tax mean Indian is taxed, y'all. That's how slick and grimy and slimy this system is, y'all. Because they did it, didn't they? Now you can. It's like they want. I ain't even gonna go into it, y'all. I know what it means, and it's up to Indians to know what it means. How about that? No one else has to know what it means. Indians have to know what it means. And do not let them argue you down. They will try to, again, use some kind of case law. But like we said before, those cases, Indians weren't part of those cases because Indians were not part of the federal government. They were not citizens. And if commerce pulled us in, then commerce overstepped its bounds, yo. Straight up, point blank, period. Commerce should not be pulling someone out of their legal standing. Why would commerce be able to do that? Who would allow commerce? In other words, just because I'm supposed to be engaged in some kind of trade with you, that means you get to pull me off of my standing on the land? Commerce can do that? Yeah, when you allow them to, they're not supposed to. There is, again, unless we're still operating under the doctrine of discovery, which we are not. Why? Because it was repudiated March 30th of 2023. That's why. Pope Francis, get it with it. Get with it. The Supremacy Clause established that federal laws, treaties, and regulations are the supreme law of the land. But it's all commerce. There's no way it can be supreme law of the land. It was created to prevent conflicts between the federal government and the states. Yeah, by having the federal government dominate the states. How does that prevent conflict? And to establish a strong federal government. Well, that's not what this country was about. We did not want the whole point of the United States having that whole revolutionary thing was they were going to limit the powers of government, not make it stronger. Okay. Oh boy. Examples of the Supremacy Clause in action. In McCulloch versus Maryland, Chief Justice, John Marshall. Here we go, y'all. John Marshall is the one that founded federal anti-Indian law, is what an attorney calls it. They call it federal Indian law, but a wise attorney said, "Oh no, it's not, y'all. I've been a lawyer in federal Indian law, and I see what it's doing to even to the Fakians. Even the Fakians be like, what going on?" In McCulloch versus Maryland, Chief Justice John Marshall, that's the one who made that Marshall trilogy, the Supreme Court judge, y'all, that ruled that Indians lose their land. Federal recognized tribes can lose their land, according to John Marshall. And what did he base his rulings on? The doctrine of discovery, y'all. What has the doctrine of discovery been? Repudiated. So that's who John Marshall is. He's the one that let it be clearly known that taking of Indian land and taking authority over them, we do this because of the doctrine of discovery. That's what Peter Dorico, the very wise attorney, has schooled us on, and we will never forget that lesson. Thank you, Peter Dorico. Thank you, Glenn Fern. Thank you, Anna Von Reitz. I don't learn this kind of thing from Black Europeans, from Moors. Same thing. I don't learn this from them. They don't teach this to American Indians. You have to listen to those people that believe that they were fighting for freedom. Indians are confused because we got the one who enslaved us keep saying that I am you. You can't enslave you. You see, we keep going between being a victim and being the victimizer. That's what's stagnating the Indian. He has the Black European got him. He went from being one whole thing to now he's like the Gemini. We got one part of him is Black European, the other part is American Indian. So there's a fight going on. It's stagnating the Indian from waking up fully. because the that's the role of the Black European. No, you didn't. We built a republic, not you. I built a republic. You built it, and you with me, and I'm you. So we built a republic, and so the Indian is like, well, his head is going from left to right, left to right. Am I Black Indian? Or am I Black European? Or am I Indian? Am I Black European? Or am I Indian? I'm Black European. Meanwhile, Caucasians are very clear. We broke away from the Black Europeans. We ain't trying to get them confused with us. And we know when we being dominated by the nobility. People like Glenfern and Anna, what makes them valuable to the Indian is that they are clear on who the problem. Indians are caught between I'm a king, I'm a queen, and I'm an Indian that's been completely dominated by kings and queens. But I'm a king and I'm a queen, and I'm an Indian who was dominated by those kings and queens. So again, the Indian is kind of stuck on stupid because we can't decide, are we British or are we Indian? Oh my God, y'all. This is what some people are teaching our people, that they were British. Well, if that's the case, how did that happen? That happened when Indians were kidnapped during Columbus time. They were kidnapped and brought to Britain, and there they became quote unquote British. But it was still a nobility that did that to them, not the Indians themselves. It was British nobility who were Black, and who were they? Those were the priesthood that we kicked out centuries ago that ended up living in Africa and Europe. So they come and kidnap West Indians and rear them up to be Black Europeans. That's how that went. If we just do the math. So who are the Black nobility? Well, the Washita dude, again, he's almost like Anna too. I will give him credit. Now, he is a Moor, right? But the thing is, he is clear on what happened. He's clear. Let's just say he's someone who is trying to reckon with being Black European and part American Indian as best he can. But he doesn't see, because he's two of those, like I would say a lot of us now are mixed in with the Black Europeans. But again, that doesn't exclude us from, or it doesn't divorce us from the duty to uphold an American heritage. The Black European, again, for the umpteenth time, the Black European is out to diminish the American Indian legacy. And he wants to replace it with a Black European legacy. He wants to be both because it's an a grade for him. Indians should not want to be both because it's a downgrade for them. They get lost. Their history is not spoken about because that history would say Black Europeans came and took over my land. See, that's why Black Europeans, they can't allow American Indians to have their history because that history would have the Black Europeans coming and erasing the American Indians' legacy and trying to make it his. When you tried to say this before, when you come to a land and you intend to partake of that land, what you're saying is, I'm giving up mine because I value yours. But when you do that, you can't now start trying to impose yours on us. Again, you might as well stay home. If you want to relish in your own nation and your own nationality and your accomplishments of your people, you can stay home to do that. But to come to someone else's home and do it is disrespect. It's genocide. It's arrogant. All the things that the Moors are about. So, we want to see examples. In McCullough versus Maryland, Chief Justice John Marshall ruled in favor of the federal government over a state law. That John Marshall was a piece of work, y'all. Favor of the federal government over a state law, establishing the supremacy of federal law. In Gibbons versus Ogden, the Supreme Court ruled that the federal law supersedes state law. My God. Ending New York's monopoly on steamboat operations. The framers' concern. The framers of the Constitution feared that without the Supremacy Clause, the states would ignore the federal government and encroach on its authority. But the federal government got authority from the states. This is not making sense, y'all. This is not making sense. And this thing where the federal law supersedes state law, I still don't understand how that is. The states came before the federal government. There is no way that they get to supersede. The thing that created a thing is more powerful than the thing it created. Point blank, period. So all of this is reading to me as really BS, y'all. It's BS. It's not, this is what a New World Order would do. As I said in other instances, it takes what came before and makes it null and void. If Indians came first, they're going to null and void that with Africa. If states came first in a New World Order, the order is changed. Those states were before federal or the federal government. In a new order, the federal somehow grabs authority over the state. That's not possible, y'all. Again, thank you to Glenn Fern. He made that very clear. That boy, he does his homework, y'all. That man does his homework. And it is a learning experience, y'all. It is a learning experience. Again, a Caucasian has a broader learning capacity because he is clear on who the problem is. An Indian is not clear because they're debating, am I Black European or am I American Indian, or are they one and the same? So the American Indian is preoccupied and stagnant because of the chaos of Black Europeans. That's what it was supposed to do to you, Indians. But again, I'm going to say it. That's why Caucasians are much more clear, and they fight a better fight when they're fighting for their rights, y'all. Now, Indians can argue, well, do they have rights in America? That's the point. That's not the point. The point is they fight for what they know to be their rights. Unlike Indians, who are too busy being nobility and being the victims of nobility at the same time. This supremacy clause is troublesome, y'all. But so that's why it led to, I think the next screenshot is what? Oh, when was the supremacy clause created? Okay. Supremacy clause, to my shock and awe, was created in 1787 during the Constitutional Convention. That was very unsettling, y'all. That was very unsettling. So that means this clause has been in existence for as long as Constitution has been in existence. But here's the thing we have to remember. The states were here before. the Constitutional Convention. So that still leaves the states in a dominant position. Okay. But it still is a bad look because it seems like it was really established with the first federal constitution. So from the beginning, the feds were eyeing taking more power than they were granted. 19 enumerated functions become over 300. Thank you, Anna. She's the one who supplied that information. I never understood why Indians don't like what Anna was teaching or had a problem with what she was teaching. But I think that is the Black European side of the American Indian resisting the truth about what Black. That's what the problem was. Because Indians, for me as an Indian, Anna, she presented herself to be a plethora of knowledge that I would otherwise not get from the Pan Africans, uh, from any Black source, to be quite frank. I could only get this from actual Caucasian Europeans. Um, let's name them. This is Anna von Reitz. I learned a lot from her. This is Glenn Fern. I learned a lot from him. I actually met him in person. Again, I went to one of their seminars in person. Peter DeRico, priceless. That's an attorney, but he's an attorney who peeped game. Now, the only thing I would say about the attorney, Peter DeRico, is I don't think he gets the United Nations like even someone like Anna does. Anna realized that the United Nations is just another corporation. And also the United Nations, just like the federal, who created you? Because who created you would be the authority over you. United Nations started out as the League of Nations, which was started out by one of these federal presidents, Woodrow Wilson, I believe, was the first one to start the League of Nations, and later on that morphed into the United Nations. But let's do the order again. If that was a federal president, who is he standing on? He's standing on the state. So the state is the president's authority, and then the president goes to build a League of Nations. So who's the ultimate authority? It should have been the state that created the thing that created the United Nations. But in a new world order, the whole point is that the states now take a backseat so that ultimately the new world order will be run by the UN. Okay, so the Supremacy Clause was created in 1787 during the Constitutional Convention when it was included as part of Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution. It was proposed by Luther Martin, not to be confused with Martin Luther, as part of the New Jersey Plan during the convention debates. So someone in New Jersey proposed the Supremacy Clause? Oh boy. Key points about the Supremacy Clause. Location in the Constitution. Article 6, Clause 2. Purpose: to establish that federal laws take precedence over state laws when they conflict. Proposed it Luther Martin. Okay, let me. And what was the next one? Because I could have sworn. Uh, Founding Fathers. That's why the Supremacy Clause was written as part of the U.S. Constitution, which was created by the Founding Fathers. But Lex Luthor or Luther Martin was not one of the Founding Fathers. He had to be a pawn for the nobility, y'all. It says the Supremacy Clause was written as part of the U.S. Constitution, which was created by the Founding Fathers. But here it says that the Supremacy Clause was created in 1787 during the Constitutional Convention when it was included as part of Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution. It was proposed by Luther Martin as part of the New Jersey Plan during the convention debates. So the Supremacy Clause sounded like it came from one man, Luther Martin. So this is what we wanted to talk about. I was going to look at the according to historical context. Oh yeah, what came first? According to historical context, the states came first as individual colonies, declared independence, and formed their own state governments before the federal government was officially established through the Constitution, which created a unified national system governing those states. Essentially, the states existed as independent entities before the federal government was formed. So who's the real authority? But somehow in a federally out of control system regulating commerce, the states take a back seat and they're being puppeted by the feds. Really, the states were supposed to have much more power than the feds. That is no longer the case, y'all. But I can tell you, even the Supremacy Clause shouldn't give or it shouldn't have the effect of making the federal the authority when what came before the federal was the state. Just a little note on a foreign system that has nothing to do with me. It's just me looking at it to know that why I really need to get out and be an Indian not taxed like I'm supposed to be, that is not enumerated, not counted in the federal system, not taxed, and not represented in Congress. Now, what we want to say on that note before we close, I had more stuff to look at, but I think I'm just going to do it in another video. Because you have a standing, Indians must understand all we have to do is call up that standing that we have. We shouldn't look at it like that's going to cause a problem with the feds. All it does is show that the feds dishonored our standing and sought to limit us to only federal tribes when that shouldn't have been done by reason that what came before the Commerce Clause, the Indians Not Tax Clause. Like I said before, the Indian Not Tax Clause should have set the tone of how Indians are looked at throughout the entire Constitution. Instead, it took a 180. Our standing took a dive when it was somehow decided that only the feds can regulate commerce. That's like saying China, like I'll always say, China and the United States are in commerce, but only China can regulate the commerce. Do you think the U.S. would stand for that? Do you think, what would the U.S. say if they were doing commerce with China and only allowed China to regulate, quote unquote, whatever that means? Because again, it was never defined, but whatever it is, if only one of two nations is doing it, you know there's a problem, because it shouldn't be that way. They're both equally authoritative, unless, of course, one was colonized by the other and they're still being colonized. So when the doctrine of discovery has been repudiated, there should be no more colonization activity. Excuse me. When there are two sovereigns involved, one sovereign should not get to, quote unquote, regulate the commerce. Regulate, in the case of the United States, actually meant that the federal would take over the land of, in our scenario, it would be China. So if regulation, first of all, whatever it means, it shouldn't mean that one country involved in a two-party commercial agreement, one country should not be eradicated, made subject, made as if domestically dependent on this other nation. They should treat each other like sovereigns, meaning China does not lose its land. It does not get reclassified just to do commerce with the United States. But that's what happened to India. And that is why. What should we defer to? I'm going to stop the share now because we're going to end this video soon and pick up with the next slide from I Love Ancestry. Okay. That website disappears and reappears like Casper the Friendly Ghost. And I just think that if you want to grab that article, grab it, because it seems like, well, let's take a quick peek. Let's take a quick peek. Do I have it? Is that it? Okay. This is the latest version of that article on I Love Ancestry. Sorry, we're jumping a little bit. But you get it. When two nations are involved in a commercial agreement and the laws of that nation does not apply to the other nation that it is in commerce with, it shouldn't be just one of them regulating commerce, especially when the commerce meant that, like in the case of Indian tribes, the commerce meant that the federal government created federally recognized tribes and only did commerce with them, but they're not even doing commerce with those Indians. It's another thing I want to say. Although they were supposed to regulate commerce between states and the Indian tribes, the Fed overrode the states. As we see, they just overrode the state constitutions and state laws. So what the federal is doing is overriding everything, y'all. And we don't know where the authority is coming from. We have to assume that it's coming from some form of nobility. But they're doing things that neither state citizens intended them to do, and definitely American Indians did not intend to be dominated just because we were doing commerce with the states. Again, we were supposed to be dealing with the states, not the feds. But the states don't really exist anymore. So who's running the show now? It's looking to me, it's all about the Fed, y'all. And they were the least in charge when compared to the states. Maybe the states would have did commerce with us if they were not being tied up by the feds. And maybe we would have got compensated like we should have been if it were up to the states. But as we see, the Fed just took over the states, took over Indian tribes, don't want to deal with uncivilized. As if you're civilized in your doings and your dealings. Hmm. Anyway, in the new version of the article on paper genocide, they have removed Walter Plecker's picture. uh, this is what you find when you try to look up iloveancestry.com. So this has happened more than once, y'all, when I look for this site. And then somehow it would pop up and it would be iloveancestry.net, not .com anymore. And again, in this new version, it doesn't even look like a website anymore. It looks like a page. When it was iloveancestry.com, it was more like a website. This is more like you can't even search. Like there's no search bar. Uh oh wait, there it is. Here it is. Here it is. I didn't see that before. Oops. My bad, my bad. Okay. But yes, Walter Plecker has been removed. Let me see, because I know that I had a version because you really have to keep a copy because this website, it seems to, where's my Walter Plecker one though? Oh yeah. See, it used to look like this. So let's uh move this up a little bit. Okay. So at this website, y'all, I'm hoping that it stays up. But Indians should make a copy of this article. This is my copy because this is the article that lays out that it was Indians who were reclassified black. Now, if you go, a lot of times you look up something about the paper genocide, it's very convoluted and they're not saying what happened. This is the old version of the article. Again, I caught it and saved it. Here is the new version. Walter Plecker has been removed, y'all. His name is not even said anymore. Here it said, wait, does it mention his name? Yeah, Walter Plecker paper genocide of Native Americans. So that's now gone. And what do we have? It doesn't say Walter Plecker anymore, y'all. They're trying to save his neck for some reason. I don't know. Maybe his family is like, no, don't do that to him. Well, what did he do to us, though, yo? I mean, it's not that we're just so excited to see his ugly face anyway, but you see, it's changing, y'all. So the paper genocide of Native Americans from 1790 census to the present. Okay. And they took his face off. But the article, it still reads the same. The author's name is Sonia. Ooh, it looked like they didn't write her name here. Um, and I was just looking her name up, and now well, let's look at the other one. Sonia Braxton, there it is, right here. Sonia Braxton. It was compiled by Sonia Braxton. Okay. And I tried to look her up and I was a little disappointed. She is very much Christianized, yo. That's just to say the least. And I was like, oh, well, you can't have it all. Her article is really good because it really lets you know who was reclassified, where it's hard to read that. When you go to Wikipedia, they're saying uh, African Americans who mixed with Indians were uh, being classified black. But we were not African American. They trying to make it like we were Indians because we mixed in with Indians. No, that's not what happened, yo. We were the Indians who were misclassified, and that's what I love about this version of the article. But I just want to say you won't find it now. Uh, you have to even in a Google. Now let me try this here for y'all because you say what you mean? You got it right there. You found it. Yeah, I don't know how I found it. I was on. It wasn't on my laptop. I'll put you that way. Let me look. Let's see what pops up now. I love ancestry. Now I don't want to put .com because it's not .com anymore. Ancestry. Oops, got spelled right. Love and oh boy, ancestry. Paper genocide. Uh, so I would put something like that, and then I will Google and let me see. Does it come up now? Okay, so here we have this. Now that was not coming up before, but let me see. Let me see. Yeah, see, that never used to happen when I Googled. No matter how I Googled it, when I put I love ancestry, and I didn't put .com, right? But this is I did pull up .com. Okay, so then you go here. Let's. Okay, this was not here before, but it looks like it's here now. Okay, it was not there before when I searched. And what happened was I ended up looking for it on my work computer. That's when it came up. That's when it came up. And what I did was I emailed myself this link, and that's how I was able to get it on this laptop that I'm recording on right now. But I guess now that I pulled it up on this laptop, by using another laptop, now it knows where to find it. It did not know how to find it before, y'all. I promise you. I kept doing all kinds of searches. It was not coming up. But as soon as I emailed myself the link, which is what I had to do, I guess now I don't know, recalibrated my computer or something. But I think we're going to have to close now because, I'm trying to do shorter videos. I'm sure this is not. But I thank you for watching. Until next time, we might want to maybe look up a little bit more about the sovereign, what do you call it? The Supremacy Clause. That don't even sound right. But we did want to look at, I had a bunch of other slides there, and I guess we'll have to look at next time. Thank you again for watching. Till next time, be and stay highly favored.